Abroad today is either mad or can only be up to mischief.
Einar was about to point out that they were abroad themselves, but then held his tongue. There was little doubt about it. They were up to mischief. It was indeed Yule, the great midwinter festival, but while the rest of the folk were snuggled up indoors, spending 12 or more days drinking and eating themselves sick, Ulric's Ulfhethner were trekking across the snow-covered landscape on a mission that was really just a ruse for their real purpose in being in the folk district, to determine if Jarl Sigurd could trust the local lenderman or not. After their previous voyage that had taken them to Hilby at the edge of Denmark and the lair of the notorious Viking Ashbjørn the Bear, they had sailed back to Norway and the employ of Jarl Sigurd of Rycharde. The Jarl was as powerful as a king himself, but he had thrown his lot in with the young lad Hakon Haraldsson, who now held the high seat of Norway. Jarl Sigurd was Hakon's most powerful supporter, but the new king was far from secure. The folk may have rebelled and driven Hakon's half-brother Eric Bloodyaxe both off the throne and out of the country, but there were many in Norway who had yet to accept Hakon as their new ruler. Some nobles thought they should be king themselves, rather than a mere lad of 16 winters. Their half-hearted support was further eroded by the fact that Hakon had been raised overseas, fostered in the court of Aethelstan of Wessex, the great Christian king who wanted to rule all of Britain, and seemed obsessed with meddling in every other land around it as well. Eric still lurked, an ever-present brooding menace only a short distance away across the northern seas, in his new realm of Orkney, a realm that by rights belonged to Einar. Ulric hated Eric for betraying him, and had taken to heart the wisdom imparted by Odin himself, that the enemy of your enemy could be a valuable ally. Hakon thwarted Eric just by being alive and on the throne of Norway. Jarl Sigurd was keeping Hakon there, so Ulric and his crew had returned to the cold north, and offered their swords in the Jarl's service. Jarl Sigurd had faced opposition himself for his support of Hakon, and currently he had his eye on one of his noblemen, a lenderman called Geirpi Haftenson, who ruled a district to the south of Rycharde. He suspected Geirpi of secretly working against him in support of Eric. Despite it being the festival of Yule, Jarl Sigurd had sent the wolfcoats to Geirpi's lands, ostensibly with the task of collecting some long-overdue taxes, but really to find out which side Geirpi was on. Now, if Ulric and Scar were correct, it looked like Geirpi was indeed working against Jarl Sigurd. Not only that, but Geirpi had guessed what the wolfcoats were really up to, and was about to do something about it.
I should have known that story about his silver being kept in the backwoods was a lie,
Ulric said, referring to what Geirpi had told them when they arrived at his hall the night before. The lenderman had claimed that all his treasure was held at his brother's hall some way off. With it being Yule, if the wolfcoats really wanted it soon, they would need to go and get it themselves. This was how they had found themselves trekking across the empty white wilderness, when everyone else in the district was stuffing themselves with as much roast boar as they could manage. Einar pulled back on the snowshoes he had taken off to remove his heavy fur breeches. Like the others, he kicked snow over the furs he had stripped off to hide them. He was nearly ready. The wolfcoats were preparing their trap on top of a hill. When they had spotted the men following them, they had been on a trackway that was marked out by occasional tall poles, driven into the ground to stand tall above the snow and show where the path was. Ulric had ordered them off the track and up the slope of a hill nearby. When they had trudged their way to the summit, they had found it to be a concave bowl. Scar had declared it perfect, as the raised lip of the bowl would shield them from the eyes of their pursuers while they made preparations to do something about them. A natural path led through the bowl on top of the summit, and the wolfcoats had split in 2 groups, one on either side of the track. They had planted their round shields into the snow in a line, so they formed 2 short fences opposite each other, then shoveled more snow in front of them into a bank that hid them. From the natural trackway between them, The banked up snow before the shields merged with the snow behind.